France is undoubtedly one of the pioneers in the development history of armored vehicles. Apart from iconic tanks like the Renault FT-17, France also made significant contributions in the early stages of armored vehicles. Today, we will briefly introduce an armored tractor modified from an agricultural tractor. Even before World War I, France, like other countries, had already attempted to build armored vehicles. However, at that time, everyone was simply installing steel plates on regular cars, and the performance of the finished products was not very impressive. When World War I broke out, people discovered that barbed wire and machine guns were the biggest threats on the battlefield. Soldiers were often blocked by barbed wire and then became easy targets for machine guns, or were overturned by a shell that came flying at an unexpected time. George Firz Tractor Company proposed the concept of an armored tractor, believing that it could provide necessary protection against light weapons and could use the mobility of tractors to defeat barbed wire and open passages for infantry. In fact, this idea is similar to that of a tank, with the difference being that tanks not only focus on protection and crushing barbed wire, but also emphasize their own attack firepower. Therefore, Firz armored tractor can be seen as a supplementary armored weapon, complementing the development of tanks. At that time, both the British and the French were actively developing tanks, with the characteristics of being inexpensive and easy to produce. Firz's idea was approved by the French military in January 1915, as the French army in the midst of war urgently needed such equipment, and the concept of an armored tractor did sound promising. Of course, this type of weapon was modified using tractors from Firz Company, taking into consideration the off-road and protection requirements. The entire tractor was turned around so that the large-diameter rear wheels became front wheels, enhancing its off-road capabilities. Additionally, the engine originally installed at the rear became located at the front, effectively increasing its defensive capabilities and improving the crew's chances of survival. The entire tractor was protected by riveted steel plates, including the front engine. A steel frame was prefabricated for the main driver's compartment/combat compartment, and then steel plates were riveted around it. There was a slightly angled steel plate at the top of the front, and a sloping steel plate at the top rear of the combat compartment, with a rectangular cabin door as the only entry and exit point for the crew. The thickness of these protective steel plates was 8 to 12 millimeters, and there were several observation slits around the combat compartment, with a self-defense machine gun mounted at the front. Firz armored tractor received an initial order of 10 vehicles, mainly for testing its combat performance. They were all delivered in July 1915, after which the French army conducted a series of tests on them. In the most important test for crushing barbed wire, the performance of Firz armored tractor was not very good. The test showed that the tractor could indeed use its large steel wheels to crush and break taut barbed wire, but it was powerless against looser barbed wire, which would bounce back after the tractor passed over it, still obstructing the infantry's advance. In other aspects, the tractor's observation windows were very small, with no periscopes, and the crew's visibility was poor, a common problem in early tanks and armored vehicles. The 45 horsepower engine was not powerful enough for muddy battlefields, and the large steel wheels of the tractor were not as convenient as tracks, making it easy to get stuck in shell holes and unable to move. Despite the unsuccessful testing, the French army, lacking in weapons and equipment, still sent these 10 armored tractors to Verdun. However, the performance of these 10 armored tractors was simply too poor. They could still be used on hard surfaces, but they could only move forward with great difficulty once they entered the muddy ground, so they did not actually participate in combat. Firz armored tractor weighed about 4 tons, with a length of 3.8 meters, a width of 1.4 meters, a height of 1.6 meters, and protective armor thickness of 8 to 12 millimeters. The crew consisted of 3 people, and the weapon equipment included an 8mm machine gun.